I'd like to call this meeting to order. Okay, welcome here, everyone, and thank you, Council, for attending. And at this time, I would like to give the opening to Councillor Damian Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today marks the last council meeting before Remembrance Day, and I felt compelled to use this day as my theme. I had a great uncle who served in World War II, and like many others, he never once talked about what happened, shared war stories, or reminisced about the war, at least not with other individuals. There were others that revel in the chance to share their stories, be it the glory and achievements of their platoon, the hardships that war brings, or the long-lasting impacts of war times. It just shows that war impacts everybody differently. A few months back, while driving home, I had a sobering thought come to me. My children will not have the chance to hear these stories in person. They are at the age where they are too young to understand war, the suffering and pain that it brings. And for that, I'm glad right now. But by the time they are of age to start understanding the evilness of war times, these brave World War II veterans will have passed on. And with that, so will a piece of their memories and history. In a way, I myself also do not understand war and the impacts that it can have. The Vietnam War was long over before I was even born. The Cold War that brought fear to North America was finishing while I was still in diapers. Am I in any way equipped to share how war impacts societies when I myself have never lived through it? Yes, there have been modern wars in Middle Eastern countries, and not to make light of the sacrifices that have been made in these conflicts, but as a general society, we are detached from these, and they have not directly impacted our day-to-day lives like previous wars. So what are we to do to keep the memories alive? As a famous quote from George Santayana goes, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. There is some very strong verbiage in that quote. It does not say that we may or could repeat it, but we are condemned to. This is, of course, not gospel, but it is a harsh reminder of the dangerous cycles that societies can take. We need to continue to talk about the dark times of our past and teach them in our schools. We must still talk about the past and celebrate the sacrifices. We cannot cancel culture and destroy our monuments, regardless of the mistakes individuals may have made, but we must remember. As it says in the poem in Flanders Field, if ye break faith with those that die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow. We cannot run or hide from the past wars, but must learn from them and build our society up from the lessons learned. War is evil, but studying them is wisdom. This will be the last Remembrance Day for some of our heroes from World War II, and it will look different this year than in years past. We will not be gathering and hearing heralding stories of the past. Medals of recognition will not be handed out in grand ceremonies, and tears will not flow down from my eyes as I listen to the last call at a ceremony. But we must not forget. We must always remember and celebrate those that served before us to give us the prosperous nation that we call our home. If it were not for the brave men and women that chose to rise up and fight, we may not be here today, and certainly not in the comforts that we consider our normal lives. We have been through a lot this year and have had to make our own sacrifices for the sake of society, but we are not being called to take up arms in defense of our country. Our sacrifices pale in comparison to the ultimate sacrifice and the uncertainty, pain, and anguish that war brings. There is no denying that 2020 has been a hard year, but I undoubtedly say that 1914 to 1918 and 1939 to 1945 were harder. Mr. Mayor, councillors, and those in attendance, I kindly ask that together with me, we stand if able and honor our heroes, both those with us today and those that have gone, in a moment of silence. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. Council, we have the agenda in front of us. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, we have the minutes of October 20, 2020, the regular council meeting. It starts on page 1. We've all had the opportunity to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Stevens. Any comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, any business arising from the minutes?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Deputy Mayor Schweitzer and also Councillor Bill Hebert from the meeting.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Penner. Well, any comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried.
I should say a little messed up.
It's okay. Okay, we are just a little bit past 7:35, so we will go directly into the public hearing. Number 6A, Variance V-2020-27. This is referring to number 1 Rosewood Place. Starts on page 6 on your package. At this time, we will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Worthington, can you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of council, this is variance application file V-2020-27 for 1 Rosewood Place in Steinbach. The owners and applicants of the property and applicants for the variance are Rachel and Donald Lowen. Purpose of the variance application is to allow a fence within the front yard to be a height of 5 feet, whereas the maximum height permitted for a fence within a front yard is 3 feet. Notices as are required under the Planning Act have been issued. There are several pieces of correspondence that the city has received in respect to this file that are in council's agenda package. There were 2 additional pieces of correspondence that were received after the agenda was prepared, and those were provided in councilors' mail bins earlier today. With respect to the application, the City of Steinbach zoning bylaw does govern the fence heights that are permitted within the front yard. This particular property has a fence height of 5 feet, which does exceed what is permitted in all residential, commercial, and institutional zones, which is a maximum height of 3 feet. There are possible negative impacts for vehicular traffic visibility and safety. The chain link fence in question that is the subject of this application presently exists on the property, with it having been installed earlier this year. With respect to this application, recommendation from administration is that council deny the application.
Thank you, Mr. Worthington. Is the applicant here today? Do you wish to speak?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You can take the podium, state your name and address, and then you can address it.
Okay, and I need to keep my mask on?
Yes, we do ask that, yeah.
Okay. My name is Rachel Lowen. I live at 1 Rosewood Place, Steinbach, Manitoba. Good evening. I really dislike this kind of thing. I love peace, and I am sad that my efforts to reconcile this beforehand were unsuccessful. As I was praying yesterday, I told God that now would be a good time for me to develop a cold, flu, or even COVID. Anything so I could get out of coming here tonight. I guess the saying that the majority of people fear public speaking more than death is true. In the end, I felt gently nudged to come, so here I am. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out. I am the mother of 3 children. I love our town, my neighborhood, and neighbors. I have enjoyed peaceful relationships with all my neighbors in the 16 years that we have lived here, and I've been shocked by some of the hateful comments that I have been targeted with since I unknowingly violated a fence bylaw earlier this summer. During the 2 times I attempted to work toward reconciling the issue, I was yelled at for approximately 30 minutes, during which my character was attacked on many levels. I was even accused of threatening the lives of my autistic 21-year-old son, Leighton, and my 4-year-old son, Josiah, who has Down syndrome, by allowing other children into our home. During these discussions, I patiently acknowledged my neighbor's perspective whenever I could. I hoped that eventually I would be able to share and discuss the issue with her freely, but my peacefulness just seemed to make her more angry. At one point, this neighbor threatened me, saying that this was just the beginning of my trouble and that she would continue to attack my family in various ways. Both times, I finally left crying. I did not pursue contacting anyone after this. The petition with the signatures by most of my neighbors was not something done by me, but instigated by some caring people on our block. Why am I applying for a variance? My goal in applying for the variance is very simply to advocate for my nonverbal autistic 21-year-old son, Leighton, and my nonverbal 4-year-old son, Josiah, who has Down syndrome. If it were not a need having to do with my children's physical safety, I would readily take the fence down or shorten it or whatever would need to be done. After the second time I was yelled at, I even called the contractor in tears, asking him to take it down, desperate for peace at all costs. He even brought 3-foot fencing to replace it, which is currently on the south side of our garage. However, after carefully considering into my motives and what we really needed, I could only conclude that a 3-foot fence would be useless and that I was simply reacting in fear to the bullying I was enduring. With why a 5-foot fence is a need and not a want for my family. Both Leighton and Josiah have issues with bolting. For those who are unfamiliar with special needs children, this means that they are in constant danger of just taking off. This, coupled with the fact that they are both at a developmental level where they do not understand consequences, aka wandering onto the road, means they both require constant supervision. Earlier this year, Josiah learned how to open doors and has gotten out. He is such a small, quiet little boy, and he actually managed to get onto the road twice in early spring of this year. From other discussions with families with Down syndrome children and the frequency of this issue, I could not help but think that this would be an ongoing issue for our family, and how heartbroken I would be if he would be hit by a vehicle and the trauma that hitting a disabled toddler would cause to a driver, whether it would be a neighbor or anyone else in the community. Without a fence of this height, it is a very real possibility that such a tragedy could occur in the future. I would not have spent $3,600 on it for any other reason. This was the final deciding factor. It would also be unfair to continue this discussion without painting a bit of a picture of how COVID has impacted our community and the least of these in our community. Over this year, I have watched many people struggle with the anxiety, fear, and loneliness that COVID has caused in their lives, both personal and in the workplace. For children and young adults with disabilities that are already limited in their ability to participate, it is exponentially more difficult. As we walked into the first lockdown in March, I could not help but see how similar everyone else's new normal was to my children's normal pre-COVID. Many of my family's struggles felt silently validated as I watched others struggle with loneliness and isolation to varying degrees. It also helped me empathize with what others were going through. Both my children will have extra difficulties that others do not have during this difficult season. They cannot make a phone call, attend a cell meeting over Zoom, or do many of the things others can during life and shutdown. Because they do not have the understanding to socially distance and get in other people's space. They have even been cut off from relatives that are trying to follow all protocol. Anyone who knows my 2 special children know that their first love language is physical touch, and as such, they are dangerous. The few places we could take them have been closed down. Well, none of you have the authority to reopen the pool or the movie theater or change the shopping restrictions, so I could just take my kids to Costco for a hot dog and drink. You do have the authority to expand a safe place for them on our property. While I know personal hardship is not a good reason to grant a variance, I believe it is important for my neighbors to understand why we would need it. Despite enormous amounts of effort to place 21-year-old Leighton in a day program in the last year, where he can benefit from being out around others and being in the community, COVID has jeopardized that opportunity for him and many others. Unlike the COVID protocol for daycares, preschools, and schools, the day programs have been shut down except under emergency situations. So after finally attending his program for only 2 days, I was informed of this sad news on Monday. When Leighton arrived home yesterday, he looked so sad. Having the fenced-in front yard would allow him just that much more space in his world that has grown increasingly smaller. What considerations did I make ahead of time? While it was a stretch to pay for it financially, I believed it was a decision that was in the best interest of everyone and thought carefully about how to do it in a way that would be both practical and pleasing to the eye. Had I been aware of the bylaw, I would have applied for a variance ahead of time. I am truly sorry that this step was missed and for the undue stress that it has caused. However, in ignorance, I went ahead, I discussed the matter with several neighbors and even the one that was later so angry. But from our later conversations, I am sure that she misunderstood me. Even though a straight galvanized fence was approximately $1,000 cheaper, I paid for a black fence. I also asked the contractor to make an extra trip into Winnipeg to pick up an extra post so that the corner would be angled, as I believed this would be more pleasing to the eye. I was also concerned about traffic and that it would not in any way hinder anyone's view of traffic flowing down Reimer Avenue, hence the decision for a chain link fence that would allow an unhindered view of oncoming traffic. I was aware we were putting it up for a very specific need and even discussed with the contractor that I planned to take it down when and if we would ever move. As I've looked ahead with the decision that will be made tonight, it will not change the fact that we need a 5-foot fence in our front yard. Nothing in my authority could change the circumstances and need for this. However, the neighbors could change their perspective. It will either stay as is or we will have to modify it. According to the bylaws and the pictures sent by the town of Steinbach, we can erect an up to 6-foot fence up to the front of our garage. According to this, we can move the existing fence to run in line with the front of the garage, literally halfway across the front yard towards Reimer and just enclose half the front yard. With the issues at stake, it feels like this will be our only legal option. However, I do have to wonder if when all is said and done, the neighbors, especially the ones on Reimer that will be looking at it every day, will be more unhappy with the fence that complies with the bylaws instead of the existing state of it. Thank you so very much for your time and consideration into this matter.
Council, can I ask you to stay at the podium for now?
Sir.
Any questions for the applicant? Councillor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did a great job presenting, and I'm sorry for all you've gone through. It sounds like it's been very difficult. One of the challenges with this variance you are requesting is if we grant the variance, it stays with the land, not the person who owns the land. So for example, if you sell it, it stays with the property. I'm just wondering if in good faith, if I would ask you, if before you sell the house, would you take down the fence? If that's something in good faith, we can't force you to do it or require that, but in good faith, if the variance passes, before you move, would you take down the fence?
Yes, I would, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to administration. Thank you very much. Mr. Workington, was the applicant's assessment of the fence being able to be moved back to the garage line accurate? Is that what would be?
Yes, that is permitted under current city zoning bylaw.
Thank you.
Requirements.
Councillor Penner.
Through you, further to Councillor Penner's question to administration. So my understanding is the fence is 5 feet high right now,
Correct.
and a 6-foot fence would be allowed on the front yard if it was just pushed back to align with the garage. So it'd be a foot higher, still in the front yard, still coming around by the side.
Correct, yeah. So
Okay.
long as the fence doesn't get built or erected closer to the street than the front of the structure,
Right.
it can be as high as 6.5 feet.
Okay, so because the garage sticks out from the front of the house?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, council? Okay, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
we'll probably call on you later. No, you can stay right there, yeah. Is there anyone here wanting to have questions or object to the file? Okay. As you take the podium, please state your name and your address, and then you can address council.
My name is Marguerite Cody. I live at 557 Reimer Avenue. Mayor Funk, city councilors, as a concerned ratepayer, we are objecting to the approval of the above variance, erecting a 5-foot chain link fence for the front yard of number 1 Rosewood Place, the Lowen residence. It's an eyesore, lowers the value of neighboring properties, and is illegal. Hopefully, Mrs. Lowen has done her homework, surveying the line where the fence is installed on June 22nd, 2020. She planted a hedge along Reimer Avenue in Rosewood Place some time ago. It is now growing on City of Steinbach right of way. After living over for 36 years at 557 Reimer Avenue, we never thought that we would have to appear before council to object to such a variance. I sincerely hope that this matter will receive careful thought from our city council and managers. Marguerite Cody and Dennis Cody.
Thank you. Is there any questions for, go ahead, council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason for the variance is with regards to it being a 5-foot fence as opposed to a 3-foot fence. If it was a 3-foot fence, would that change your opinion in any way, shape, or form, or is it?
Well, it would be legal, so it would have, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
Follow up if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, in essence, your objection to the variance is in principle, correct?
Pardon?
Your objection to the variance is strictly on principle, then?
Well, not only principle, it looks like, it doesn't look good. Like a chain link fence does not look good. We all know it's for an industrial site.
If I may follow up one more time?
Yeah, and then we'll get Councilor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chain link fence up to 3 feet is allowed in the city of Steinbach without variance. The reason, again, I'll reiterate for the request for the variance is because it's a 5-foot fence as opposed to a 3-foot fence. So she could have the same fence if it was 3 feet high on the property. So again, I'm kind of at an odds of what you're.
Okay, well, if it was 3 feet, I wouldn't be here because it would be legal. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor Penner.
Thank you. Through you. The alternative is a 6-foot fence that still cuts in front of the yard that is equal.
To the front of the,
So because
Right.
that's legal, that's less offensive, even though
well,
it could
she's
be
got
taller.
a full backyard. She could have put her fence all the way in the backyard. I mean, she just doesn't have a front yard. She has a backyard. I'm not stopping it from being in the backyard.
Okay, thank you.
You understand? It could be 6 feet in front if that's what the law is. I mean, it's legal.
Okay, thank you.
You understand?
I understand.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other questions?
anything further? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Cote. Is there anyone else with questions or wanting to object to this spot? Good evening.
Evening.
Yep, state
Mr.
your
Mayor.
name and your address.
Don Hepner, 563 Reimer Avenue.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I can sympathize with Rachel, our applicant, with the challenges of her family. I respect her industrious efforts to run a daycare business in our neighborhood. But we, the undersigned neighbors, and I presented you with a list of signatures there, oppose the 5-foot fence in the front yard, which does not conform to the city bylaws regarding fences. So we object to this variance application for the same reason that the bylaw was adopted in the first place, to protect neighbors from structures that do not enhance the neighborhood and thus negatively affect the property values in the surrounding neighborhood. Also, apart from the visibility thing at the corner for traffic trying to get out of Rosewood Place. But to allow this fence as it stands would be setting a precedent. I know there are many infractions of this city bylaw across the city. Many of those have been grandfathered in, but many, I suspect, have been overlooked by the bylaws officers who, because no one objected and over time have become legal. So overruling this variance application is not denying someone a livelihood for her family and disadvantaged kids. Our neighbor does have other options. And like was mentioned, she could erect the fence in the backyard. So overruling this application is upholding a bylaw that shows respect for others in the neighborhood. So does it come down to a sympathy vote? I don't know. But just to sort of paraphrase what the councillor made in his opening statements about those who don't know the past are condemned to repeat its mistakes. Wouldn't want you to repeat the same mistakes that allowed all those other infractions in the city. So, like I say, I sympathize and I respect your position as a family, but I still think even an assurance of it being taken down afterwards, after you move, but in the meantime, we're all living there. So is there sort of are you saying that there's a little time period we can allow an infraction? Just as a sympathy vote? No, I wouldn't think so. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mr. Hepner.
Yes.
We have a question for you, Councillor Penner.
Through you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for your comments. I'm just wondering, a few times you mentioned all the other infractions in the city like this. Would you have specific examples of which, like some of what these infractions are?
Oh, just shrubs that block the, well, hey, you could almost point at the main street with the concrete flower pot, things with shrubs that high. You can't see when you approach Main Street from Reimer, in fact. Then there's all kinds of places in the residential areas with shrubs and fences in the front yard, or fences along a side street like Rachel's, where it goes beyond the front of the house. You could probably check with Trevor Schellenberg, the bylaws officer. I'm sure he's driving around town and seeing it all the time. And I'm sure you've seen it too. You don't have to look far to find those infractions. But like I say, they've been sort of grandfathered in, but now we're moving forward. Let's not make the mistakes that were made in the past.
Through you to administration.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Worthington, do we have a habit of or does the city have a habit of overlooking infractions and just grandfathering them in?
Are you asking me?
No, Mr. Worthington behind you.
If the city becomes aware of an infraction and it is based on a complaint, the city will investigate, but we do make every effort to try and correct any infractions that do get found.
Okay, so then if there was an infraction that would require a variance, presumably it would have to come here.
If it's
No, there's only, pardon me?
All right, if it is a matter that comes to the city's attention and the homeowner is aware, then that would be one option, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, you had, Mr. Hepner, you had referenced she was operating a daycare. I'm just wondering if that was a slip of the tongue or if, to your knowledge, she is operating a daycare at that location.
Oh, well, I see kids being dropped off every morning, 5 days a week.
Okay.
I have a question for administration, Mr. Workentine. Do you have an example of this kind of fence anywhere in our city at this time?
This particular situation in a residential setting, I do not.
Okay. So,
I have in mind, I forgot that in the street exactly where it is, but I could come up with multiple page-long list of those kind of things that are situated around the city, but is that, that's not a matter of discussion right now, it's what's happening today.
okay. Well, thank you. Is there anything further, Council? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hepner. Okay. Is there anyone else wanting to comment, have questions, or object to this file? Okay. And, okay, so that was it? Okay. Okay, I will turn to the, pardon?
I don't know if you're aware the applicant's been putting up her hand.
Yes, yes, I'll get to her. At this time, I'd like to call the applicant back to answer some of the questions that were raised by those that had objections.
I totally understand what they're saying, and in regards to possibly having a fence in the backyard, there are probably various things that they haven't considered. For one, like in putting it up, I was looking at staying here long-term as well, with both an adult, a child in the adult program and a preschooler. One of the things that happens from Monday to Friday is they both get picked up. Once Josiah's in school, the bus will come for him. And once the day program would be running, transportation would come and pick him up. I usually have a worker there, and they help load them up and get them off because they both can't, they're not high functioning enough that they'd be able to get on their own. So often that is during a 5-minute period. So they're both out there at the same time, and one worker can't watch both of them. The fence actually in the front yard, it enables us to smoothly transition them both off to their different programs or to preschool or whatever it would be. So that would be one of the main reasons we did put it in the front yard. In regards to running childcare, I have done a lot of childcare in the past. Due to COVID, My oldest son is currently renting the basement, and he is running a part-time childcare business, and I work for him part-time. It's something we've done because with the CERB and everything, I've had to be there for Leighton. His program was at 50% capacity, so he couldn't go into his day program. So we've been, like all people through COVID, I've been juggling things and trying to make ends meet. And with all the issues, it's been, yeah, quite difficult. We went around for a short ride, and it took no time at all to find lots of violations of this. There's one right behind our place on Sherwood Place, right behind us. And I'm sure many of them don't need a variance as badly as we do. So I don't know, like I just wrote just a few down. I didn't go, this was just on a short drive. These are all like hedges. Some of them were 10 feet tall, some were like well past, there were fences. So I don't know if that would be something that would help.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Penner, you had a question?
No, nothing further.
Okay, Councillor Penner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mrs. Lowen, I normally wouldn't bring up something along a question such as this in council, but be it that your children being people with disabilities is something that is brought forward as a consideration. You've referenced a few times that they are not high functioning. In terms of physical capability, would a 3-foot fence not be sufficient to hold them back?
It would not be. Leighton, like, I'm tall. My husband's 6'3", so, yeah. Our kids are tall, and Josiah climbs. It's a constant issue. And I don't know if you understand what this means, but Leighton's a level 6 for funding, which means he's pretty much as handicapped as he can be. So he's very much like a 2-year-old. Like, he doesn't understand not to run on the road. Like, he needs help with toileting. So for example, you know, if you had your kids on the yard, if he would need to go in to use the washroom, he needs somebody to come in and help him. So there's times where if we're all out in the yard, or it's just me with the 2 of them, it actually enables me to care for both of them at the same time and not to have to bring everybody in at the same time. I can just run in and go up and get a drink, or I could help Leighton with going to the bathroom or whatever. So it is very unusual. I understand that.
Anything further? Okay. Thank you very much. You have done a great job presenting. Very, very difficult story to hear. This is a difficult decision also to make, but thank you very much for giving us a snapshot of what it's like. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration, and we'll, yeah, all your time.
I'll ask one more time if there's anyone with comments, questions, or objections to this file. You can take a seat. I'll have you take a seat. Okay, seeing none, we will now close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to approve? Councilor Penner.
Motion to approve the variance.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Siemens? Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaws exist for a reason, but so do variances. And the fact is, these are extreme circumstances. And just because we approve this one does not mean there's a precedent that's going to be set. If that were the case, then every time we approve a variance, it would naturally put it into a bylaw. Each situation is unique. Each circumstance is unique. So just because I support it this time does not mean I would support it in the future. What we have here is an issue of a height difference of 2 feet. The fence can be where it is, but it's supposed to be 3 feet instead of 5 feet. The options are for her to make the fence shorter, which takes away her need for the fence, essentially, because it's not safe enough for her children. Presumably, the next option would be to erect a 6-foot fence that cuts right through half the yard where the garage lines up with the garage. As Ms. Lowen referenced, chances are the solution, the legal option, is actually going to be a worse solution than what is currently there. I've driven by that site a couple of times, having read these notes, and I personally don't think it's an eyesore. After hearing her comments today and what she's been going through, it's a sign of a caring community. And I think part of being in a good community is also, we take into consideration the bylaws, but we also have to take into consideration compassion and caring for each other. And so I'm supporting this motion because I think this is an extreme circumstance, as I mentioned, and I think it's more important that we care for a resident in a difficult situation than make her move the fence and essentially present a worse option at the end of the day.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Seaman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Penner's comments. I struggle with this as well. I looked at that site as well yesterday and spoke to Mrs. Lowen. I agree with the fact that this is maybe a compassionate decision on my part, but I also see good reason for it. At fault is the fencing contractor as well. He needs to carry some blame as locating the fence, but not majority of the contractors in Steinbach understand and know the rules and the bylaws and could have helped the homeowner in this case. There's a safety issue here with the family. If we deny this variation, in this case, the fence potentially could be moved to the middle of the front yard as indicated, or we would force confinement into the home. We understand what Mrs. Lowen said as well, that the children being in the front yard where she can see them and be with them versus in the backyard where she can't see them at all times is part of it. So I agree with the comments made by Councillor Penner, and I would agree that we approve this variation.
Thank you. Anything further, Council? Councillor Hebert.
Mr. Mayor, I have concerns regarding this file. First of all, I'd like to say we're sorry to hear about the attitude of the neighbors in that area. It's sort of not what we would expect from the citizens of Steinbach. My thoughts are with the Lowen family and the family situation. I commend them for how they're looking after their children under such adverse circumstances. In these unprecedented times, I have a 4-year-old autistic grandchild as well, so I realize some of the problems that associate with that. I also take note of the letters of objection and the petition of those that are not objecting. I walk by this area quite often. I walk just about every day, and so I'm well aware of what this place looks like. And I also realize that lowering that fence from 5 feet to 3 feet would be an extra cost to the applicant. A concern I have is that the front yard is required sort of to separate the daycare that the son is running out of the basement and separate that from the adult children in her home. That's, I'm just wondering if that isn't the bigger factor here for having that fence in the front to separate the children, as Mrs. Lowen suggested. The bylaw is very clear. Recently, we objected to a 5-foot fence, which is going to be railings on Granite Park on the front yard. We denied that application. And like I said, the bylaw is fairly clear that 3-foot fence is the maximum on a front yard. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Mrs. Lowen, I know you have your hand up to speak. I'm really sorry, but the public hearing has been closed. So this is now the council meeting. Anything further, council? Anything in closing?
Yeah, I didn't mention it in my previous comments, but Councillor Hebert alluded to it, that there's also a petition of support from 6 households in Rosewood Place, which is where this property is located, who do support this and don't have a problem with it. And as Ms. Lowen said, she didn't even initiate that. That is done by the neighbors. So I think that speaks to the situation as well. I understand that this is a difficult decision for council. It really is, and I know most of us have been struggling with it. But tonight, I believe the right thing is to show compassion. I'm going to take Ms. Lowen's word for it that in good faith she will remove that fence when she moves from the property. And again, I would just like to say that that fence should be a source of pride for the neighborhood, given the circumstances, not considered an eyesore. Thank you.
Council, this is a very, very difficult decision. Could possibly be the most difficult one of our term thus far, because it's about lives here. It's about quality of life for children with disabilities, and we're here now. We shouldn't be taking, as a rule, we don't take these kind of considerations into the equation when we do work on variances. It's usually something specific to the land, either the lot doesn't fit or there's a reason for the variance. This is a very, very unique situation, and I've struggled over this one from the day that Mrs. Lowen came to my office and we talked. This has been a struggle for me right from the start, because we have our bylaws to protect, but then we have this special situation too, on the other hand. And it's very difficult for me, but I know. And how would I want this decided for me is I would want someone to have the same compassion that we should have tonight. So in this case, council, I will vote in favor of the variance. I wouldn't do this in other circumstances, but I do believe that there are extenuating circumstances, and sometimes beyond are the requirements we have to make rules and policies. They need to be tempered with compassion sometimes too. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, council, you can leave now. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Need to drink water. Okay, council, we'll go to 6B. This is bylaw 2159. This is referring to 224, 228, and 232 Woodhaven. We're going to be looking at second and third reading. Starts on page 24 of our package. At this time, we will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Workney, could you please introduce this file?
This is application for rezoning under bylaw 2159 for 224, 228, and 232 Woodhaven Avenue. The owner of the subject properties is Two New Properties LTD, with the applicant for the rezoning being Len Neufeld and Waldo Newstader. Purpose of bylaw 2159 is to rezone the subject properties from RHD residential high density to RMD residential medium density, as is shown on the sketch. Notices as are required under the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on the file. Other than Community and Regional Planning has issued correspondence indicating no concerns with the application. The City Council has approved two similar rezoning applications in this neighborhood earlier this year. Recommendation from administration is Council give this bylaw second and third reading, subject to any evidence provided at the hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Workentine. Is the applicant here today? Do you wish to speak, take the podium?
Say my name, right?
Yeah,
Waldo
name and-
Newstader, 61 Brant Street.
Not for us, for the record.
Oh, there you go. Okay, thanks. I don't have anything to say unless there are some objectors or some objections, then I'd like to speak if I could to that.
Okay, so you'd want to, yeah, we'll give you the opportunity to speak last.
That'd be great, thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, is there anyone here wanting to object, have questions, or any comments for this file? Okay, we'll have you at this podium here. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Okay, welcome. State your name and your address, and then you can address us.
Okay. My name is Corey Svenarchuk, and I live at 67 Whitby Crescent, which is right along the proposed bylaw we're speaking of today. So the reason I'm here today is I was here last time, and I think you're most aware that most of the people in that area are not, overjoyed to be having these large apartment blocks behind our homes. That is our backyard, and of course we've been afforded the luxury of having, the open space for years, and that's part of the reason I moved there. So at the last meeting, I had requested that a fence be at least built along the property line between the proposed new site and the current residential single-family dwellings. And at that point, I was told that, as there were no vendors or builders at that time, that it wasn't something that could be requested. So I'm here to request that a wooden fence, a privacy fence, be erected between the new development and the old current residential properties. Yesterday, I went along to all the houses along that stretch, right from beginning to where it goes around the bend, and everybody is in agreement. They'd all like to have a fence, a privacy fence, an uninterrupted wooden privacy fence. They don't want foot traffic going through, or, and that's our backyard. That's where we do recreation. Let's see what else here. So out of the 15 properties I went to, 12 of them were home and 12 of them signed. And one of those properties that I didn't go to was vacant. It's burnt. It's not there right now. And another person who didn't sign is my neighbor Chad, and I know he would sign, but he works evenings, so he's not available right now. Speaking with the residents on the street, they had some other things they'd asked me to bring up. Let's see here. I had called and just inquired to Lacey about what the proposals were from two new, or not just two new, but people who would be proposing to build there, how they would set up the properties. And if I understand correctly, the north and south are the front and back, and the west and east are the side areas. And the builders that had some input on it were saying that it would be the north side, which is, okay, where the back of the property is this south. It would be green space, building, and parking lot. So the closest area to our backyards would be a parking lot, if that is what they choose. And nobody wants to sit outside there in their backyard, have a barbecue, and watch a parking lot. Let's see if there's anything else I'm not here putting down. I'll probably remember as soon as I walk out the door. Yeah, uninterrupted fence, higher is better with 0 foot traffic going through, is pretty much the consensus of everybody along that one side. So we'd like to request that a fence be built.
Okay. Council, any questions for the is this a formal objection that you're making, or just a request?
To have, last time I was here, they said I couldn't ask because there was no vendors or no builders to ask to build the fence. So if the builder does, whoever the person gets the ability to build there, we'd like them to build a fence, or the city of Steinbach. Somebody, we would like a fence there, somehow, some way.
See, generally, this is new construction. Generally, new construction, we don't put restrictions on it in that way, like a fence. Generally, in infill situation, there might be where there's a couple of already existing lots that are single family, and then in the middle of these lots, they're putting multifamily. Then there's usually often fences required.
Right.
Where we put that stipulation in. But in a case like this is brand new development. There's nothing there before. It's not replacing anything. So generally, there's no restrictions put on like that,
Right.
like fencing.
That's why we'd like to request it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make it a stipulation, or the city of Steinbach put it up, if it's not the builders.
But-
'Cause then, yeah, it's just so open, it'd be too open. I mean, we're just sitting there, yeah,
Okay.
seen it, it's just, yeah, it wouldn't be very attractive at all.
But this is not an objection to the
No.
to the rezoning. This is just a request
Yes,
and comments to.
yes, so if I have to come again next time, I will, but I was told last time not that I couldn't suggest it at that time because there was no actual vendors interested.
On this, yeah, again, there's no actual builders on this either. This is just something that's being done to be proactive because there's been a few that have been changed to RMD from RHD, which is 8 stories are allowed in RHD.
Right.
Now, these are all being rezoned down to RMD, which is lower density.
Right.
I believe they can go 3 stories, 3 or 4, where you can. So it's going to be a much lower density than was originally zoned.
But would there be more buildings as opposed to one large one? Are you having more people, like there'll be tons more people?
Well, the buildings will be able to take a bigger landmass, but there'll be a lower building.
Right.
So it'll be nicer for the neighborhood behind, because there won't be as much height, so there'll be less, I guess, it'd be more privacy.
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, if you could look into your yard, but a
Yeah.
fence would help some.
Because being down, then your angles are lower and they're harder to see in.
Still 2 or 3 feet
Plus,
high.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a 45-foot public reserve, which will be primarily for drainage. But before, like at the end of the property, so there's the parking lot,
Right.
then the end of the property, and then there's 45 feet before your property start. So
But they built a sidewalk. Well, it's not supposed to be, but people use it as a sidewalk. It's drainage, but that's what they use it for right now.
okay, well, that
Yeah.
we can't help that, but that's what it's intended to be, just a public green space, a reserve for drainage, just to be left open.
And one other concern I would have is that the 4 feet as opposed to the 25 feet, I would want the 25 feet from the back, make sure that's the side property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we can do much about that because the way the lots are designed, the frontage will be on Woodhaven. So the frontage will be the front.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but I just wanted to know if this was a formal objection.
Not an objection.
Okay, this is more just inquiry and you have suggestions.
Proactive, like, so you know ahead of time that this is something that the community would really like. And I've got all the signatures here. I could submit that if you want, of all the people on the block.
Okay. Well, are there any questions from council?
To administration, through you.
Go ahead, yeah.
The green space that the mayor spoke about, what is the width of that?
That is a parcel, 45-foot wide parcel of public reserve land.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do I give this to anybody, or?
Yeah, you can leave that with,
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with questions, comments, or objections to this file?
Oh, no, Not objecting.
No? Okay. Mr. Newsome, would you like to speak? There seems to be no more, no one with any more questions.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and councillors, I'd kind of thought lowering the density in our development would be very positively received, and yet here we are. Rarely has there been a more positive application for our neighborhood, given that less density means less people, and building heights being up to 40 to 50 feet lower than the current density allows for. And also considering that we have a 45-foot buffer between the neighborhood and our development. This buffer by far exceeds any distance guidelines in place for any development of this nature in any other area in the city, considering that buffer is in place. I don't know how much better this situation could be, however, it is obviously not perceived this way. I object to these requests and ask for your consideration to consider all the positives and approve our application. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Councillor Penner, do you still have a question?
No, he addressed it.
Okay, good. Then at this time, we will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner.
Motion to approve?
And second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have had multiple RHD to RMD rezonings come across down Woodhaven in that area. There really isn't that much more to say with regards to this, other than it's going to be a better fit for the community, I feel, going from the RHD to the RMD. And seeing as these are the last properties, I'm going to miss our bi-weekly meetings with Mr. Newstater.
Anything further, Councillor Hebert?
This variance has been before council previously. The contractors and developers are well known to council. Their developments have been a definite asset to our community. And so when we talk about a 45-foot buffer zone at the back, I think this will be an asset to that area.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Seaman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This change here, the rezoning application, from RHD to RMD. An RHD can have a maximum of 8-story building, so that, but with side yard setbacks with a minimum of 25 feet. And RMD zoning will have less people in it. That was one of the questions, but a maximum height of only 3 stories. But it permits a side yard setback of 4 feet. So the footprint is larger on the property, which gives them more opportunity to design a building with a bigger footprint. But overall, reducing it from 8 stories to 3 stories will reduce also the amount of people that will be in that area. So I think that also addresses some of the concerns with people, how many people were in that room.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Further? Well, council, I think this has been before us a few other times. I do feel this is the right way to go. I think it's a great transition from the single family, the multifamily. You'll have high density in the big lot in the corner, but you also have this great green space right across Woodhaven from this property. So I really think this is a great way to go. I think it shows great insight and desire to create good products by our developers, and I support this motion. So I'll call for the question at this time. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mr. Workman, can we go directly into third reading?
Yes.
Okay. So this is third reading, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Payable. Any comments?
Nothing further.
Nothing further of council? Nothing in closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried for third reading. Council will now go to 6C, conditional use 2020-08, 170 PTH 12 North. It starts on page 36 of your package. Mr. Workman, would you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this application for conditional use file CU-2020-08 for 170 PTH 12 North. The owner of the property is 532-6151 Manitoba LTD, with the applicant being Tim McLeod. Purpose of the conditional use application is to allow a digital advertising sign to be located on the subject property. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on file. Recommendation from administration is that council approve the application for conditional use.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Is the applicant here today? Do you wish to speak?
No, I really don't have anything to say, just that the digital sign.
Well, I'll tell you what. State your name, your address, and then you can just brief us.
My name is Tim McLeod. I live at 11 Ocean Ridge Drive, Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I'm the franchisee for Wendy's restaurants in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Okay.
And these digital signs I've been putting up in the last 4 years in front of the stores, rather than you plunk the letters on the signs. They're much more attractive sign. Mm-hmm. And in the cold weather, it's much better for our staff to put them on. So it's a little bit more money, but it's better for our staff, I believe. Yeah. And they look quite more attractive.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
For administration.
Oh, for administration? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Why do these digital signs come to council? I understand if it wasn't a digital sign, it would just be approved, or would it still have to come here?
Generally, if it's a typical pedestal sign that does not have any digital portion on it, it would be subject to just a regular permit review process. Particularly with digital signs, because there is motion, there is light, there is particular considerations, especially with respect to sign proximity to intersections or pedestrian corridors, because it could pose a potential safety issue. That can't be known at the time of necessarily creating the bylaw that governs it, but then it does provide guidance to applicants.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions? Is there anyone here with questions, concerns, or would like to object to this file? No one? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner?
Motion to approve.
Second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Well, we're always happy when new business comes to town, and part of making our community conducive to new business is opportunities to promote our business. So good signage is crucial to a successful restaurant, to attracting business, to attracting customers. So that is why I want to approve. I want to help Wendy's be successful.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Okay, council, I believe Councillor Penner said it all, so I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. It's approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, we have no delegations. Council, there are no reports and recommendations from the city manager. We'll go to 9, administration, 9A, accounts payable. They're in the back of the book. Council, we've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Hebert.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We have 9B, the bylaw 2162, street renaming, third reading. That's on page 45 of our package. Mr. Workentine, would you like to introduce that file, please?
Yes, bylaw 2162 is a street naming bylaw for a short section of public road that intersects with PTH 12. It is right next door to the Millbrook Market development. Street naming proposes that that section of road be named Market Boulevard. Recommendation to give third reading.
Okay. Council, we're looking for a motion to approve third reading. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is fairly standard. Their new development is coming in, so they're wanting to name the street that the new development is going to be accessed from. I do want to make a point, though, that this is a big deal for Steinbach, and I don't know that it's getting as much attention as it deserves. This is exciting. This is going to be an incredible campus of economic of the economy, and frankly, it's kind of going by the wayside, I feel. So I hope people start noticing it a little bit more, and there starts getting a little more excitement about it, because this is huge.
Thank you. Anything further? Anything further of council? Anything closed?
Nothing further.
Yes, Councillor Penner is right, council. It's a big deal for Steinbach. This kind of changes what we've seen as mixed use. Mixed use has usually always been in one building up until now, and this is a campus. This is like this is a few acres that are going to be mixed use, and it'll be a campus with residential, commercial, retail, institutional. It's going to really be a happening place, and it'll draw a lot of people to that corner. So call for the question. All those in favor of third reading? That is carried. Council, we're going to 9C. This is fire protection grant application for site fencing. It starts on page 49. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, this is the first of 3 grant applications that you have in your agenda package. Because they are for 3 separate projects, they are listed as 3 separate items. This particular application seeks provincial funding for site fencing that's being proposed for an anticipated fire department training area. The resolution is included in the package beginning on page 49. Recommendation is to approve.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Workentine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Siemens?
Motion to approve?
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Penner. Go ahead, Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an application to the province of Manitoba for under the Fire Protection Grant Program. The City of Steinbach, together with the Fire Department, is planning a fire department training area. It's a proposed 5-acre site off of Millwork Drive, adjacent to the existing City of Steinbach operations yard. And this is fencing for that property, which would begin The request for grant is just under $60,000, and I think we should approve as it is a long-term project of our fire department for a training facility.
Thank you. Anything further?
I think this is a super exciting project coming our way. We are known for having a great fire department, and for them to be able to set up a training center in our community is very exciting. So I happily support the motion.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Yes, council, I agree. In order to have great employees, you have to give them good tools. And this is part of that, giving our fire department the tools they need to train new firefighters. And this is very, very exciting. I'm really looking forward to this, and I do too. I support the motion. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, council, we'll go to 9D, which is similar. It's the second of the three fire protection grant application for breathing apparatus. Mr. Workentine, do you have anything to add to this?
Just to highlight that this one is for, or this application is for a breathing apparatus replacement program. The total proposed costs under this grant application are just under $96,000, and request council's consideration to approve that grant application.
Okay, council, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead, Councillor Hebert.
I'd just like to repeat too also that we have a very good fire department, and I think it's council's duty to ensure that they have proper tools and proper facilities to work under. This is $95,000. It's a health and safety issue, and we can't put a price on the health of our fire department.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Thank you. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We will go 9E. This is the third of the fire protection grant applications. This is for a gear dryer. That is, page starts on page 51 of your package. Mr. Workentine, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Specifically, this application again for equipment necessary for the operation of the department. The application or total project cost under this application is just over $36,000, and again request council's consideration to approve the application.
Council, motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
I don't propose to know much about gear turnout. However, what I do read in the notes here is that having better equipment to do this reduces cancer in the fire service community, which is certainly more prevalent in that group. So as Councillor Hebert said in the previous one, this is about health and safety, and I think it's really important that we support this motion.
Thank you. Anything further? Nothing further. Anything further, council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Okay. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we have 9F. This is bylaw 2164. This is the traffic bylaw, the first reading. This starts on page 61. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This traffic bylaw 2164 has been in draft stage for some time. It generally proposes to update the City of Steinbach existing traffic bylaw and several other bylaws and combining them into one comprehensive document under bylaw 2164. This particular draft was presented to council at committee meeting in September. City Council did provide administration with further direction as to amendments that were requested to the draft at that time. As noted, key provisions regarding those requests have been incorporated, and they include allowing the public to make specific requests to council for traffic control devices to be maintained, as is present in current City Bylaw 1350. It did also then requested administration to remove the restrictions regarding the operation of vehicles on city property. And council also requested further amendments to the proposed fine amounts that are found in the appendix at the back, specifically to modify the fines assigned to disabled parking permit infractions, as well as several other fines. Generally, those changes have been incorporated into the document that you see in your package, and recommendation from administration is for council to give this bylaw first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Workney. Can you just jog my memory? What was the fine brought up to for the infraction of the handicapped vehicle?
The current city bylaw assesses a fine of $100. That has been increased to $250.
Okay, right here. I see that. That is S29?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Workney. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Hebert?
Motion to approve first reading?
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Siemens. Go ahead, Councillor Hebert.
Has been discussed and by administration, council received a draft of this and we discussed it previously, and I don't think there's anything further to add.
Okay. Anything further?
I believe if this is approved, it goes to a public hearing?
Actually, no. This does not require a public hearing. However, it will be taken back by administration to review further and consider if any additional changes are required or if council has any requests prior to approving first reading.
Thank you. Anything further, council? Anything in closing? Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 9G, Subdivision 4451-2020-8344. It's on page 82 of our packet. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
This file is an application for subdivision. As you just mentioned, the file number, I won't repeat it, it's a few numbers. But it is for property with a civic address of 40 Northgate Drive at the north end of Steinbach. This application seeks to create one additional commercial Bearland condominium unit within an existing Bearland condominium development at the particular property. This property is presently Zone C3, which is commercial corridor under City Zoning Bylaw 2100. The access will be provided based on an existing approach to this particular street. Recommendation from administration is council approve the application.
Okay. Thank you. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Brenner?
Motion to approve.
Councillor Hebert, second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's important that we allow our developers to develop and basically get out of their way in these situations like this. They know what is the best for what they need and what their needs are. There's no variances being requested, so let the builders build.
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything?
Nothing further.
Council, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, council. Number 10, council question period. Is there any questions of council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 11, correspondence and petitions. 11A is Steinbach Chamber of Commerce, read a letter of recognition. That's Starts on page 110. Council, how would you like to proceed? Take it as information? Okay. We got 11B, Safe Families, Steinbach, the read letter of request. That starts on page 112. Council, how would you like to proceed? Yes, go ahead.
I would like to make a comment that they have received their full funding and are starting, I believe, this week officially.
That's exciting.
Yep, exciting news.
Okay. I would suggest we take this information at this time. Okay, thank you. And 11C, we've got the Minister of Relations, read the Manitoba Restart Program. It starts on page, the letter is on page 113. We've received from them $947,678.60 for our, that is Steinbach's portion of the federal Safe Restart Funding Program that was divvied out by the province. And council, that is, it's a great chunk of money to put towards a project to get our community working, motivated, just restarting in general. So, yes, Councillor.
Through you to administration, have we received this money?
I cannot confirm. I'm not sure.
Is it in the form of a check?
It would likely be a direct deposit.
That's good, because if they spelt the mayor's name the same way as they did on this paper, it would be incorrect.
Yeah,
I have a question for administration.
go ahead.
Is this replacing other grants or funding we were expecting, or is this just like additional money that we?
This particular grant award is additional funding that is strictly due to a restart funding program due to the impact of COVID-19 and its effects on municipalities.
And are there specific parameters we need to fall within, or it's at our discretion what we use it for?
As far as I understand, it is at the city's discretion as to how these funds be spent.
Thank you. Well, that's great.
Yeah, council, I would suggest at this time, once we receive it, we put it into a reserve and then pick a desired project that we can agree on and move forward on it that way.
Like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we all have a project we want to see done. We'll
We decide now?
no, we'll talk about this coming up. Okay. Is there anything further? Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll take it as information. Okay. No other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Stevens. Call for the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next regular council meeting is Tuesday, November 17th at 2020 at 7:30 PM. Thank you. Thank you, council.
It felt really